The hour of 6:30 having arrived, I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Columbus Plan Commission to order. Mike, will you take the roll?
Stapleman.
Men.
Any way you want to say here.
Hajewski,
Here.
Myers.
Here.
Monday.
Here.
Albright.
Here.
Anfinson.
Here.
Finkler.
Here.
You forgot my name, you'd be in trouble.
I like how you got Hajewski, but not Stapleman. I'm not going to beat you up too much.
I went to school in Stevens Point.
Oh, yeah.
Right, we'll move on. No. All right, this meeting was appropriately noticed in accordance with the state of Wisconsin open meeting laws. Commissioners, there is an agenda in your packets. Please review, and I'll entertain a motion to accept or amend.
I'll move to approve tonight's agenda.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We've got our agenda. There are minutes in your packet from February. Please take a minute to review, and I'll entertain a motion to approve or amend.
I'll move to approve.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Minutes are approved. All right, moving on to regular business. Tonight, we have a public hearing regarding the conditional use permit for an RV staging area on Commerce Drive, parcel number 1512.18.
Yep.
Is there a map to display?
Site plan.
Wonderful. In the meantime, I'll open the public hearing and ask if there are any members of the public that wish to speak.
We have this gentleman here.
Great.
With Marquardt RV.
Great. Yep, step to the microphone and give your comments. Name, address, and present your comments. Thanks.
My name is Joe Henschel. I'm one of the partners with Marquardt RV. I live at 1221 Avonlea Lane, Fall Creek, Wisconsin. We opened Marquardt RV a little over a year ago now. We've actually exceeded what we forecasted for sales targets and are looking at expanding the lot. Feel like we've been able to come in, be good neighbors in the community, be a source for the community, participating in community events, employing local people, and we're excited to be part of the community and expanding here. We've recently paved our additional lot over there, but the space is just proving to be inadequate for the current sales demands. So that's what the expansion into this lot is about. There's a couple items in there regarding line striping, just the nature of the business that we have. Traditional parking spots are immaterial to the business. We're just parking and displaying RVs there that range in size from 15 feet to 45 feet. So just a couple of considerations in there. But yeah, we're excited to answer any questions and get rolling with expanding our footprint here.
Thank you. All right. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak? Call for a second time any members of the public that wish to speak. And for a third and final time, any members of the public that wish to speak. Mike, did you receive any comments by
Did
email?
not receive any phone calls or emails regarding this. Well, I did receive one.
Any substantive comments?
Just regarding some potential options regarding stormwater ditches going to that, which kind of a coordination thing with a neighboring parcel.
Okay, so more on a coordination level than a
Yeah.
comment in support or non-support.
Correct.
Okay, great. All right, no one else wishing to speak, I will close the public hearing. We'll move on to item 3, consider and take action regarding conditional use permit for RV staging area for said parcel in the Robbins Creek Commerce Center. All right, Mike, will you kind of give us an overview, and will you indicate exactly what kicks us into conditional use permit territory?
This is a conditional use because in the light industrial district, outdoor vehicle displays is a conditional use. And so we did this conditional use change at 200 across the street, January of 2024. In fact, it was my first day on the job. And that was very interesting. But anyways, so that's when that was first approved. So this is, again, kind of an expansion. Our city engineering team did a review on it. The latest update to that review letter is in front of you. You'll see it on letterhead. From the initial review letter that's in your packet, there was various discussions going on. And this is kind of a unique use from a couple perspectives. One aspect is it a parking lot? Or is it a space for outdoor sales? And when we look at it from a parking lot perspective, then lighting, landscaping, and striping of spaces comes into play according to code. As zoning administrator, I don't see it as a parking lot because the purpose and intent of this is for sales and for the sales of vehicles and not for customers, not for employees. And we also see this down the road at Mid-States. There's Bobcats and other vehicles that are on display without striping on their property, and they're stored in whatever manner throughout the year that they feel is the best. So this kind of stays not requiring striping. I think this is a hybrid between a parking lot and a place for outdoor sales of merchandise. So we can still address landscaping and lighting because this is a conditional use. So one of the things we could add a condition or two on lighting for the lot if you wanted to. So I did include some suggested conditions in the staff memo. That did not include addressing lighting and landscaping, because at that point we were still kind of going back and forth a little bit on that discussion. But there are a number of conditions in there that you may want to consider. But I think the gentleman made a good summary of the project. They're using an existing curb cut to get into the lot, and their stormwater, they already have their plans for the stormwater permit, so they're well on their way to getting things going.
Yes.
And earlier, the adjacent property owner talked about, I can maybe, if you look at here, you can see these drainage ditches here. The adjacent lot has drainage ditches evidently adjacent to it.
Yeah, just on the other side of the property line, there's already an existing swale, a ditch right there. And rather than have a ditch, a high spot in a ditch, it seems like it might make sense that the applicant just gets permission from the adjacent owner to just make the ditch bigger and avoid having a high spot in the middle that might be a maintenance issue in the future.
So that could be a coordination issue between the two
Right.
property owners.
Right. And I would say that's a little bit independent of the use that we're considering, right? A stormwater management plan for
I
this
don't,
kind of.
I don't think it has any impact with
Yeah.
approval or non-approval.
Yeah.
It's
Right,
more so
right.
just a suggestion.
Yep.
I just have a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So when I look at this map, I see this lot that we're talking about. I feel like this is gonna be an area to put extra inventory, or is this gonna be like display units are gonna be sitting there and people are gonna be walking over to them?
What do you mean by display units?
Are they gonna be open for people to walk into, or are we gonna have an inventory supply
You wanna-
that we're parking
you
there
wanna
and
go-
they're just gonna be there so that when units get sold, you have one in stock type thing?
The intention is not to display the units there, it's to display.
Okay, so it's storage.
It's to just
like, yeah.
overflow inventory.
Okay.
I mean, if you drive through our lot currently, there's a lot of inventory there. And when you have a lot of inventory, then we incur additional costs because then campers bang
Right.
into each other. So it's to just be able to spread out, put excess campers over there, and be able to keep them there. We are principally a new camper dealership, so it's newer inventory. We tend not to have we don't have any 1988
Right, no.
Fleetwoods that are around there, so.
So from my perspective then, I would say that is not, to me, this is just my personal opinion, it wouldn't qualify as like a parking lot then. I think that's gonna be an overflow storage place, and I wouldn't imagine it would need additional landscaping and that kind of thing, my personal opinion.
Is there a material difference between what you have out there and a car dealership, except for the size and type of vehicle?
No. I mean, the thing that we're hoping for, with this is the ability to position these, particularly for like snow removal in the wintertime, to be able to move them and keep them plowed. The less obstacles that are in the way for us, the better and easier it is for us to clear for snow removal. It's easier to move these units. These units are moved by a forklift. So a lot of times you're moving a 45 foot fifth wheel with a forklift, so visibility can be a concern. So the more wide open we can have it, the easier it is for operating purposes. From our perspective, like having our preference would be, and I think that was addressed in there from our engineer, trying to have rollover curbs as opposed to the traditional curbs. Just to try to minimize obstacles and damage.
Did you guys pave your other lot?
Yes, that was paved. That was paved last October. And that was one that we had put a request in with the city to try to push that back into the fall, just because it would materially impact the business operation. At this point, that's not a concern, because now we have a place to put campers, whereas last time it's like, hey, if we pave this now, we don't have a place to put the campers. So, but that lot is completely paved. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Mike, will you enlighten us as to, like, there's some discussion here about parking, like, what's the parking requirement in this zoning tied to?
It's tied to the use. We would go to the, I didn't actually look it up because they're not the intent on here. I could look it up quickly. Our numbers are usually very high. And so usually, I think one of the things, did I write that in there as far as designate a zero parking on it?
Unless
Because-
buildings are added, right?
Yeah, unless, and again, and one of the conditions in here recommended is, is if the use changes or the owner changes, they have to come into compliance. So if it would turn into a parking lot in the future, they would have to add landscaping and do those things at the time that the use changes.
But this project doesn't have any building space being added, no more office space being added, and the parking that's there is adequate for your customers now? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And so if I'm understanding this correctly, basically what we as a plan commission have to look at is, are we going to allow a variance on this parking lot screening and the parking lot striping and the lighting? Is that kind of the three things we're really talking about?
Yes, and I would not call them a variance because they're not required, in my view as zoning administrator, this is not a parking lot. It's similar to a parking lot, and if you want to kind of add those as a condition of the conditional use permit, you can do that if you like.
Is screening required in this zoning, or is that also tied to use?
This,
It would be
that's
re-
tied to the parking lot.
It would
Okay.
be required for storage
So-
too, if I understand it correctly. Not screening, but I'm going from memory, but doesn't the code say there had to be a 6-foot fence around storage of vehicles?
It's industrial.
Yeah, that's more, again, this is outdoor display of, this is similar to
Dealership.
a car dealership and and the other similar sales businesses in that business park. So that's kind of how we're looking at this, is outdoor display of merchandise for sale. It's not the storage of utility pipes and other industrial.
And by code, by virtue of outdoor display, it need not have a screen.
Correct.
Okay.
Fence-
Got it.
it
That
Right,
makes sense.
I'm kind
I
of
was-
like
I was
you.
just
I
trying to,
like
like-
technically, I want to make sure
Yeah,
we're approving the
I'm
right
just,
thing.
I'm not
That's all.
opposed to
Yep.
anything. I'm just
Yep.
trying to like
And we
figure out
didn't,
how do we.
we didn't require fencing and screening on their current,
Right, it's more like the Ford dealership.
yeah.
If we want
Yeah,
to look for a similar use, it's,
Yep.
it's.
And
it's
Midstate.
Vehicles for
Yeah.
display. Well, Midstate does have a fence around a good
They
amount of
do,
theirs.
but I don't think they're required to.
Not required, sure.
That may be more for security, I mean, their own choice, again.
Are these conditions that you listed similar to the conditions on their other property?
Similar, a little bit different. There's things on there, storing refuse on their other property and all repairs and everything. But if they do
Sure.
repairs or stuff, that should be on that other property, so.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I'd be supportive of putting conditions A, B, D, F, H, and I. The rest of them seem like those would be done by other mechanisms, site plan review, meeting other parts of the ordinance, et cetera. So, A, B, D, F, H, and I, for those of you scoring along at home.
But don't we normally, I would argue that we still want those conditions there because we usually use this as the vehicle to make sure all those conditions are met, right?
Yes, and I think part of the reason I had that as a suggested condition in there is because of other members of the team were looking at it as a perspective of a parking lot, and you can see in that most recent review letter, they recommended having it addressed in this. But I think you can go either way, like have something that says striping is not needed for this use, or you could, in my mind, or you don't necessarily have to do that because I don't see it as a parking lot.
Was there a plan for any lighting on here? I was looking at the Rupert Milky thing. It says refer to section 114-127 regarding lighting requirements
Was that in the most recent?
on the most recent letter. Was there a plan to put lighting in it? If the property owner could add.
I believe that there was.
Then the
Sorry.
recording and people on TV can hear.
Sorry, I'm not very good at that. Yeah, I believe that there was. I mean, from a lot standpoint, generally speaking, lighting is something that's seen as a deterrent towards people coming on there
Yep.
at night, and you know, it does create an obstacle in there. But I mean, it's lighting, so
Sure.
all our lots have them.
Yeah, and Steve, that's a good question, like, again, sort of in the same stripe. I think all this other stuff is taken care of by other mechanisms in our ordinances. We don't have to give any special say to it. So are you intending to follow whatever our ordinance says for lighting, or are you gonna ask for something different?
I guess I apologize. I'm not sure what the ordinance says for lighting, but
Okay.
I can't imagine that we'd have anything that would run afoul there. I mean, our other lot is in compliance as far as lighting. So
Yeah, I don't
I'm
think it's hard.
unfamiliar.
I only said because there's not a light.
Right.
I don't think I saw a lighting plan, and the engineer noted it. I mean,
Right.
so it would just be the assumption that it's going to be approved with a lighting plan that meets.
Right.
The-
What I'm trying to avoid is
No.
us engineering by committee,
No, right,
letting our,
right, and that's, I'm
Yep.
just trying to make sure that we're
Yeah.
Yep.
following what
Okay.
we say.
What I'm reading in the letter, it says refer to section 114-27 of the municipal code for lighting requirements. If proposed plans do not meet these requirements, the item must be addressed as part of the conditional use permit. That's the whole idea is, this is the requirements for parking lots. So if it's not a parking lot, then you may or may not address it as part of the conditional use, one of the conditions.
except that part of it, if we don't know what the lighting plan says or shows, or if it meets this or that, we don't know whether or not to build it into the CUP. It's a little bit of a hamster wheel.
It's not a parking lot, so lighting's not required. I didn't see lighting in the plan that I just had up here
Okay.
as I was scrolling through.
I don't think the code requires any lighting. It just requires that any lighting you have can't be like shining sideways
See
and
that,
causing
yeah,
light
that's
pollution.
what I'm
And I
getting
can't
at, like,
imagine you
there's
do
sort of
anything
a,
brighter than the Ford dealer has.
there's sort of a,
That's-
yeah, sort of there's a maximum on it, right?
No, any
All right.
any lighting is generally in any dealer lot, and we have several, is directed downward directly onto the inventory versus a.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of, yes, you just have to show the plan to the city and
Yep.
they make
Okay.
sure it follows the rules.
Frankly, I'd prefer to stay mute on it here, and if there's something that is outside the bounds of what our code would require, we can come back and amend it.
Agreed.
Okay. Here, before we, let me just pull up the code here quick and we'll just look up.
I bet you're glad you took your coat off.
Why? It's gotten warm.
It is hot back
Yeah.
here.
I turned it up too high, huh?
Maybe I'm just energetic.
I think you are.
You're stressing.
My hands are frozen.
I'm with you, Uriah.
Are you warm?
I'm roasting.
Oh, yeah.
I'm still
It was
warm,
freezing
but
before.
My lips are chapped.
What code, you guys have the letter right in front of you. I'm flipping between.
114-127.
I'm always
No, I lost it.
once I hit my 40s.
If you Google Columbus, Wisconsin, 114-127, it comes right up.
Do you see how cold my hand is?
Yep.
That's why I'm considered an ice queen.
114-27?
127, 114-127.
That makes a difference. It's not fees. Here we go. All right, I want to go back one more here. Off-street parking and loading. Yeah, outdoor lighting to illuminate off-street parking. All outdoor lighting, limited spillage. Yeah. Yeah, so it's a description of the type of lighting and that kind of stuff, yeah. Yep.
Okay. Well, I think I'd be most comfortable leaving it out since we don't have a real good grip on what the plan is. We can have staff work within the bounds of the
No,
ordinance.
I
and
was
if
just trying
something
to
else-
clarify
Yep.
if we were being asked
Yeah.
to issue any variance or if
Yeah.
it's just something that we're not covering, which is,
It's up to you guys if you want to
I don't think we're
include.
covering it.
All right, any other comments or suggestions or questions?
What ones were you suggesting?
Mine were saying A, B, D, F, H, and I.
So you want to omit those, or you want
No,
to add
that,
those?
nope, those are the ones I would,
Okay.
those are the ones I'm most comfortable putting on as conditional, or as conditions. C, E, G, and J all seem like they're already tied to our code, and that's
But
just an administration.
you don't want to include what is in the memo from Rupert Milky? That's C.
I don't know that we have to. They have to meet site plan requirements, and unless they're asking for something outside of site
It's
plan
kind of different
requirements.
than we've done before. I mean, and
A
I'm
site
not saying
plan
it's
is
wrong.
required
but-
as part of the CUP.
Okay, and they have one, so we'd, sure. So,
I mean, I'm comfortable with all
Yeah.
the A through K. I'm good with keeping all of them.
oh, there's a K? Oh, okay, yeah, okay, I'd include that one. All right, well, I'm gonna stick with my tradition of not initiating motions. That's, I just wanted to indicate which ones
I
I
move
thought.
to approve, let me see. I move to approve the conditional use permit with the conditions mentioned in the staff memo A through K.
You guys can figure the rest out.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
Opposed? All right,
This now goes to city council, which would be the first one in April, because we can't get it on the next council is Tuesday, but we can't turn it around quick enough, so, it will be on the first Tuesday, well, Wednesday, right?
Oh, yes, the eighth,
The 8th.
because election's on the seventh. Dang, we're already talking April.
It's almost Christmas.
Don't say that, 'cause we even say that, we haven't even had summertime yet.
Get a little loud like Christmas out there.
Costco might have Christmas already out.
I'm sorry, just for clarification, that means that we don't have to do like the landscaping and I guess I'm not following along. So
We'll talk
worry
later.
about that later.
Yep.
all right, moving on to item 4, consider and take action regarding draft zoning rewrite, including parking requirements.
She's here.
All right,
We'll get her.
Thank you.
Did you wanna have yours up, or do you want me to?
Do you have it up already?
Yeah, I have it up already, so, okay. PowerPoint.
Thank you all for your time. It was nice to meet you folks.
And then do I push this to turn it on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. All right.
What was that?
Do you want me to get started? Yeah. Okay, sorry.
We're waiting
you looked,
for the chair.
You looked deep in thought. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so thanks for having me back. Last time we got through part one, really long document, zoning districts, land uses, non-conforming standards, bulk regulations. We're starting to move into part two, but taking it in smaller pieces, because there's a lot of quantitative detail in part two. It also involves the sign code, it involves design standards, things like parking lot dimensions. So what is here tonight is just the parking quantity standards. So just like last time, I have a little decision memo that's intended to try to help draw decisions out of tonight so that we can lead towards consensus and then put that into the draft as we go. But before we ask those questions, we'll just go through some slides here to kind of present the issues. So first, in general, what are parking ratios? You have all worked through this as Plan Commission members, but it provides either the minimum or the maximum number of parking spaces that are required for that specific land use, whether it's a single-family dwelling unit or a car sales lot or a restaurant. It provides parking for those land uses so that it's right-sized for that development. We don't want a development coming in providing too much parking or too little parking on site. So examples of how typical parking regulations are set up are by a parking space per dwelling unit or per square feet of gross floor area, or per employee on the largest shift is pretty standard for industrial, or per persons at the maximum capacity. So it's either this like capacity limit, seats or gross square footage, or per unit type of basis. The following slide, reason.
Does that also include handicap?
Yes. This is just the overall general amount of parking, and then those other regulations tell you how many of those have to be ADA. So this next one is titled Reasons to Reduce Parking Ratios. And I don't want to be overly presumptuous in the fact that the city wants to flat out reduce parking ratios, but it is a general theme of some of the audit memo and the development issues that we've gone over earlier in this project. And it is also generally what zoning codes in our area and national best practices are doing. Reasons to generally reduce parking ratios is that it can promote walkability of neighborhoods. It can reduce impervious surface, which in turn helps manage stormwater issues and reduce runoff. It can increase tax base relatively. If a parking lot is the lowest taxable value, reducing that amount and allowing buildable space on it increases taxable value than in the opposite. But for a community that, is still people have cars. We're not a major transit-oriented development. We don't have super high density where people are not owning a car overwhelmingly to get from home to work. There are reasons to also reduce parking that, in general, older codes just required too much. And I have examples of that. We're not maxing out parking lots on a regular basis. And then just for housing affordability and equity, those are other issues that we've gone through as well. I'll have an example later where a studio apartment per your code, I believe, requires 3 parking spaces, but a single family dwelling unit also requires 3 parking spaces. So that it just doesn't seem very right-sized where you're placing that additional burden on an apartment unit. Just one example of both an equity and housing affordability issue. I also like to use the example for housing affordability for a single family. If you're choosing to buy a single family home or build a new single family home, a zoning rule that says you must have 3 spaces is mandating a very, very large cost for that single family house when home costs are already very expensive and construction costs are expensive. If I want to choose to have a 1-car garage or a 2-car garage or no garage and have 2 driveway parking spaces, that would just represent a very substantial reduction in the housing cost that is mandated, in other words. So that's just some ideas around why parking ratios generally, we're moving in the direction of reducing them. The next one presents this idea of parking maximums. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. It's not something that I'm overly committed to as a zoning and planning practitioner, but a lot of communities are adding parking maximums to help reduce just that sea of parking when someone does come in and provides more than maybe is necessary, to avoid the Black Friday situation where like Walmart has a huge lot, but it's only used maybe once a year. So people are adding these parking maximums. The way that it's drafted is it allows a 50% increase. So if you have a 1 stall requirement, the maximum is 1.5. The reason why some places might not want this is it could be viewed as overly restrictive. You start to tighten that minimum range and a maximum range, and now you're maybe putting too many parameters on the development and restricting that. But I've also heard a lot of pushback from developers, particularly in like a multifamily situation, where if you as the city put a maximum of 100 parking stalls on, but their lender, the bank, says, we're not comfortable with your project at 100 parking stalls, we think that you need more to be a successful project and we want you to succeed because we're your lender, then that's putting them in a pickle with the lender. So don't want to have too many conflicts of zoning and other things that just end up causing problems and barriers. I'm sure you'll end up getting people in here too, like, well, we want to exceed the maximum, we want to provide less than the minimum, and it just ends up all of this conversation. So I think there's some good pros and cons here, but some of my thoughts on the maximums. Here's a visual example of where you might want to consider a maximum. Banks are changing a lot. They're often smaller today than they used to be for the main bank building. They provide all of this paved area for the canopy drive-through area and all these parking spots. So the math on some of these examples isn't quite perfect because they're all really estimates, but based on the square footage and your existing rules, they've provided 41 spots, and you can see in the photo there that there are like maybe 4 cars. Don't know when the photo was taken, of course, but the new requirement would be much less at 8 spots for a minimum. If you applied that maximum at that small of a number, you can see how it might start to pinch the situation a little bit. But really just for conversation's sake, like I said, the math might not be perfect on that.
It doesn't matter when that photo was taken, that tracks with what I see there every day.
Okay.
To be honest with you, those are probably employee cars, right? How many people actually physically go to a bank anymore?
Exactly. I have not been in a long time. Yeah.
Great example.
Yeah.
Great example. I mean,
Yeah.
our parking code was written before even, it was
Mobile
written
deposit.
before even direct deposit for your paycheck.
Direct
was
deposit.
prevalent.
Yep. Smartphones, all that.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm talking loud. Please go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So residential is the next example. And I double checked the code a few times just to make sure that this is right, but you do have, you can go ahead to the next slide. It's all in one spot. Single family, 2-family, and multifamily requires 3 spaces. All of those words, 2 garage spaces per dwelling unit plus 1 additional space per dwelling unit. 3 spaces. And that does, like I said, does not divide down between the type of unit, whether it's a studio or a 1-bedroom. And then the single family and 2-family also requires 2 garage spaces and 1 additional unit. So the proposed generally reduces that, 1 per single family, 2-family, and then on the multifamily, it's actually more common to have a little bit of a sliding scale, but not too much. So 1 stall per studio or 1-bedroom. And then if you have a 2-bedroom, it has 2 units and up from there. So if you've got a 3-bedroom and 4 bedrooms in a multifamily situation are rare, but those would also require just the 2 stalls. So you can go ahead.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
And we're not discretizing between garaged and non-garaged
Correct.
spaces? Okay.
Correct.
Yes, that's a significant change, and as Sonia noted, from a cost and affordability perspective, that changes the game tremendously. It gives the person the option to do what they want to do.
I'm just going to add, as someone who owns a triplex, and in that building, we have 2 units that are each just like a single bedroom. They're very small upstairs, and there's a 2-bedroom unit downstairs. When that was leasing, everyone has 2 cars. And it's always, even in the 1-bedroom units, everyone who calls is 2 people who want to live together. We get very, very few calls, and it was actually a problem, because I don't want to rent to someone who's going to be trying to park a car on the street all the time. And I don't like the idea of having only 1 parking spot for a dwelling, because even if it's a studio, you're going to have 2 people trying to live together. And we have our
Most people don't live alone.
right.
Right.
And with our winter, I wouldn't care, except that we have the winter requirements.
Right.
And so everyone I'm talking to, well, when it snows, one of you got to go take your car somewhere, and that's going to be a problem. So I agree with the reducing parking. Just, I just wanted to point out that one per dwelling unit could be a problem in this city with the street parking situation.
Yeah.
But
And I
it's
have-
not the maximum, so if the landlord chooses, right, they could have 2.
No, it's the
If-
minimum I'm talking about is the problem. I wouldn't want, I don't.
You'd prefer not so low of a floor because
Right.
while you as
I'm-
a property owner are thinking about that type of thing, there might be people out there who are not thinking about that type of
Right.
thing
If-
and are
if
inadvertently
someone
inviting a
built-
problem.
If someone built a property with a whole bunch of single-bedroom dwellings and put in a whole bunch of 1 parking spot per dwelling, you could cause a bit of a problem on that street when everyone's parking there and we get a snow emergency and you can't park on the street anymore.
And that could be an issue if you have, say, a large Victorian home being converted, and the parking should probably be part of that factor of impacting where you're gonna have those people park, because we could have that kind of stuff happening as well.
I mean, I like the flexibility for landlords to choose. I think it's kind of, to put a minimum of 2. What is, New Cardinal Heights? They came in with a variance.
Yeah.
They're 1.5 per unit.
Yes.
Yeah, see,
Well-
they don't even have 2.
It was regardless, well, at the time, when we did the development agreement and went through that process, there was still some designing of how many 1 units and 2 units, and so we ended up using 1.5 spaces per apartment, regardless if it was a 1-bedroom or a 2. And it kind of comes out in the wash.
It comes out in the wash.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
you know,
And they would have to come for a variance if we change that to 2. I think putting 1 as the minimum and then no maximum allows for that flexibility.
one of the things, the primary goals I've had in this, writing this code, is to not have people ask
Right.
for variances, or not even have or maybe, we can talk about that, but not have people come to the plan commission and say, I want to have fewer parking stalls because your standards are so high. We want to set good standards from the start
Right,
on this, so
yep.
we're getting there with this conversation.
Yep.
But our old ordinance was excessive, right? It started at
Yes.
3. So, right, because I think via the ordinance, they would have required 3 per unit, if I remember correctly.
Yes,
And that's
And-
excessive.
yes.
But Steve is right, unless you have a parent-child situation, considering most people work in Madison, most people are gonna have 2 cars. So, and I agree, parking on the street is not cool, particularly in poor weather.
But I would argue that's not the plan commission to determine that for the landlord. I think that's how we've gotten in the situation where we need to do this rewrite, is because we're trying to dictate what the landlord needs to do without that flexibility. Like Mike said, what if the landlord only wants 1 per? Like, what is us to say they can't? Because then we're just going back to the old school zoning code, we're not evolving.
Well, I think, no matter how it shakes out, I think we're going to be reducing greatly the number of spaces required in this city. I get your point about like not dictating to a landowner. Yep. But I do think it's the role of the plan commission to make sure we're not causing inadvertent problems for the citywide. And I do think the issue of off-street versus on-street parking is something that's a city planning issue. And I think we
Right.
really,
And I think that could become a
That-
nuisance.
yeah,
If you have somebody in there that, what if we have a landlord that just wants to make poor decisions and doesn't provide enough parking, and then his residents become a nuisance because they're constantly have to park on the street or whatever.
So then,
So-
don't allow parking on that street if you don't want parking on that street. If we allow parking on the street, who is it us to tell people they can't park on the street?
Well, my thought would be somewhere in the middle ground. You know, if the current code says a single-family dwelling needs 2 garage spaces and an extra space, if you said 2 spaces and remove the garage requirement, or even 1.5 spaces on a larger development, because some people might have 1 car per unit, that could reduce development cost, still try and keep street parking down a bit, so that those people who live there aren't inconvenienced when it snows, and give that flexibility. But I think there's probably a middle ground.
Are we talking multifamily or single family? Because you originally said multifamily and now you just said single family and brought in
so,
garages.
okay, so
So we need
let's
to make
talk
sure,
about, yeah,
yeah.
let's talk about multifamily
Right.
and then move on to single family.
Right.
And I also want to be respectful of your
This is
time and
great.
your presentation.
I'm here
Is
for
it
you.
okay that we take time out and talk about this?
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
Let's do that. Multifamily. Steve, you thought something more than 1?
Well, I mean, the example you gave of 1.5 spaces in a multifamily where there's a whole bunch of units, I mean, that makes sense. At least some of them have it, and that helps manage it. I just think if you built a big structure with only 1 space on the property per unit, you'd run into some problems, which is what we're trying to avoid.
I agree with that. I mean, in a complex where you have potential where you're gonna have a mix and match, some people might have 1 car, some people might have 2. But when you have like a townhome or like a duplex in my situation, if I was only required to have 1, even, it's a 2-bedroom, and I only was required to have 1 parking spot, I think I would be worried that would be, could be a nuisance for the neighbors and, the requirement. I think exceptions should be made, and maybe there's some units, maybe there's some circumstances where one size does not fit all. Maybe, single family or individual complex, like a duplex, and a townhome might be 2, or like an apartment building might be 1.5. I don't know if that's possible, but if that flexibility is possible, maybe that's something.
Yeah,
to go on.
so are you on the, go there. So there's different categories for single family and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
townhomes and then multifamily. Did you want to kind of weigh in?
Well, I'm good with 1.5 when we're talking multifamily. I still don't really like that I guess me and you guys have different definitions of nuisance. I don't find somebody parking on a road that allows parking a nuisance. I just,
No, I
No.
don't think anybody does.
Yeah.
I think it's more about snow day.
but we have a snow emergency. That's on the owner to go find somewhere else to park their vehicle.
But these
know?
locations these are typically not owner occupied.
Right, I'm fine, I was talking, right, because we keep
So that-
blurring the two conversations
No,
again.
so I'm talking about
Yeah,
I'm talking about
1.5 is good
multifamily.
multifamily, I
Yeah.
think that's a good compromise. I think, we did that for Cardinal Heights, and it made sense. We talked about it, and it made sense.
Yeah, because you've got this bulk discount, right? You've got, some are gonna have 2, some are gonna have
Right.
1. You have
I
a
just
big
wasn't
apartment
good with
complex,
2.
not everybody's home at the same time, even overnight, so, yeah.
Yeah, my problem was 2.
Yeah.
But 1.5 is
One and a
better.
half?
So my argument is in some of our streets are small, are narrower. And well, let's take Prairie Street, where my house is. If we had everybody parking on the street, that would be horrible to drive.
Hang on. Yep,
Yeah.
I agree, but are we done talking about multifamily? Because that's a single-family and two-family issue.
Okay. Okay.
Any other comments on multi?
I do have a question. You go ahead.
I'm just gonna,
Yeah.
and I think I mentioned this a little bit earlier. I think when we're talking about a new apartment building on a raw piece of land, that's easier to accomplish parking than it is where you have a large home conversion. And I think that's kind of, in those scenarios, the old Victorian being turned into a two-family or four-family home, that's where you start running into, where do you have the people park? And where the, kind of the minimums can allow a project to happen and not to happen.
Yep, yep.
And that's one of those things you maybe gotta take a look at lots and houses and, but I think in other communities I lived in, especially like Charlottesville, University Town, where the older parts, those older homes were converted into apartments, parking was a significant issue. And I think you probably see that in other college towns. We're not a college town, but if you start to see more of that, sometimes you do get that kind of issue happening.
Yeah,
And when I lived in Madison, like, I chose my apartment. If I wanted a parking spot, I found one that would accommodate me. I didn't expect the landlord to accommodate me. So I think that, like, I'm viewing it from, like, multiple different perspectives. I think 1.5 is a happy medium in our small town, but, like, I just feel like there's some onus on the renter too.
Well, there is, but also keeping in mind that not every landlord lives in the community. Sometimes you could have outside investors, and I think it's important for the community to make sure that we have reasonable standards so that for those renters who do choose to live here, the regulations protected them to give them a quality housing stock as well. I mean, it's to protect the neighboring landowners, that you don't mess up the character of a nice neighborhood too much. And honestly, I would rather encourage, if we're talking about new apartments coming to town, I would rather have quality built new construction than tear apart our beautiful Victorian historic homes. I'm really not, I'll be biased, I have one of the old homes, and I hate to see old single-family homes divided up into those. They're usually not maintained as well, and they can detract from the neighborhood.
yeah, and I had jotted down on a different page, we do want to avoid creating problems or limitations when converting uses. So I like the 1.5, because talking about, like, okay, now I'm gonna intentionally blur the line if. Always does that. Oh, yeah, you're right. Thinking about I'm gonna tip my hand on the two-family and single-family, I think 2 spaces per dwelling unit is a good happy medium. So if we think about, okay, if there's a large Victorian home and there's 2 spaces required there and it gets converted to 2 or 3 units, then we go from 2 spaces to 3 spaces if it's 2 units, if we use the 1.5 ratio, or 4.5. And while that's more, it's not so much more that I'm having a hard time envisioning, like, oh, is that really gonna, like, keep that conversion from happening altogether? Yeah, there's gonna have to be some work done, but it still seems possible. So anyway, sorry for the math on the fly.
Do we have any houses in Columbus, like our small, there's always at least one spot on the driveway and one spot in the garage, right? We don't have any instances where, I mean, there's a couple places, but that I can think of when I've been out on walks, but like, do we see there being a problem with bumping that to 2?
You guys know these neighborhoods better than I do. I wouldn't expect so.
Right.
as a minimum for single family?
I'm thinking about like as we're trying to cram in lots and our lots seem to be getting smaller and smaller, especially like, you know, over on Redbud Trail and then the new Cardinal Heights area. Like, I don't want us to also put into a situation where we can't have, or like, let's say 55 and older, you know, may only have one car, you know? Both retired people may only have one. My grandma and grandpa only had one, you know? So there's just things to consider. I just worry that we're getting too strict when our intentions of this rewrite is to be more flexible.
Are we good with multi? Do we want to go to single and two family?
we were on single now.
Oh,
No,
okay,
so-
great, we're all there.
So what did we decide? So for so let's just regroup. So for multifamily, did we settle on 1.5? Is that what we decided on? I mean, because that's what I last heard was 1.5,
That's what I heard.
Yeah,
right? Because two.
is that 1.5 per bedroom? But we wouldn't want 4.5 if it was a 3-bedroom. So 1.5 per studio and 1 bedroom, 3 per 2+ bedroom?
I don't think we're going that direction. I mean, so this rule here, the proposed,
Yep.
said 1 per studio or 1 bedroom. And I think my take on that would be change that to 1.5 per studio or 1 bedroom.
Okay,
And would we leave the 2 per 2+ bedroom as it was?
Yeah.
okay. I'm seeing nodding.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Super. Hit it.
I already said my piece then.
Oh, okay. All right. Anybody else want to weigh in on single family and 2 family?
No, not a hill I would die on, but I would rather see 2 per dwelling when we're talking any single family.
I mean, we almost have to do 2 now that I'm thinking about it, because we went up to 1.5 per studio and 1 bedroom, and we can't do 1.5 for a house, so we can't require more parking spots for a
Right.
multifamily than we can a house.
Right.
So we have to kind of go with 2, otherwise it makes no sense. Not that I think we should, but.
So I do have a question though. So a 2-car garage costs more to build than a 1-car garage. And Molly just brought this up too. We have houses that are coming in on smaller lots. I guess Redbud garages are still considered 2-car garages, right?
Yeah, because they're,
I mean, what would happen if you have people that want to build houses in the new development and they don't want a 2-car garage?
Well, I don't think we're talking about garages. This
Yeah, we're
this
eliminating any-
proposed
yep.
minimum standards doesn't say anything about garages. It's just that you,
it would just be the number of off-street parking. So it could be no
either
garage.
garaged or, okay.
You could go without a garage
Yeah, so we
altogether.
could have a carport and no
Yep,
garage
sure.
and still
Yep.
have the, right, yeah, okay.
And I like that part of the flexibility.
Okay.
Like, I think most people will still choose to have garages, but some people might choose not to, and I think that's okay.
Well, some of the older properties, they have nothing. They just basically have off-street
Right.
parking. And, you know, some
Right.
of the driveways aren't even
Right.
black.
We have to keep in mind that this is not going to be retroactively forced on any existing development that's not proposing changing its use, right? That's an important point to make.
Say that again?
This is not going to be foisted on any existing development that's not proposing changing their use. So you talk about all the houses on Prairie Street, okay, so what? If they have one, they don't have any garage and 1 space for a car in the driveway. We're not gonna make anybody like that change what they're doing. The only change that would come is if somebody said, well, I'm gonna change this Victorian home to a 2-flat. Okay, that would then kick in this requirement, right?
Yes.
right, as this is making it significantly less costly to develop new housing by removing the garage requirement entirely.
Yes.
Is there anything in the code that makes this rule inside the easements?
Location of parking stalls.
Yeah, so I'm thinking of, what is that street, Hibbard Street? We redid Hibbard Street and we put sidewalks in a lot of those properties. And those properties didn't have really large setbacks. I don't know if they can park a car in their driveway with that new sidewalk requirement. I mean, does the parking spot have to be inside that sidewalk?
Yeah, we have dimensions and other standards, like where on the lot the driveway can be placed. I just didn't bring those tonight, but that would be in part 2 of the zoning code here. And we look at that a lot, just to make sure, like a standard pickup truck, for example, if it's parked in your driveway, that it's not overhanging onto the sidewalk. Or similarly, a car with a driveway that's not long enough. We want to make sure it's long enough to park a car.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, we're not talking about existing at all. We're only talking about making it easier on new projects coming in.
Right, but you're changing their property by putting a sidewalk in their middle of their driveway.
The civil engineer is gonna tell you that that was city right-of-way to begin with, and all those sidewalks were within the existing right-of-way.
It's just grandfathered in and they can park in there?
Yeah, I think that's apples
No,
and
they
oranges.
Yeah.
they can't park on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
I didn't think so.
They can't, that's city property in a public right of way.
Okay. So there is no rule that it has to be inside
There is a rule, yes.
in the new,
It has to
in
be,
a new subdivision.
no parking can be in the public right of way,
Okay.
sidewalk portion. Old or new.
Old or no?
They can park in the street. But they can't park, they can't block a sidewalk for pedestrians.
So 2, we're at 2?
Huh?
I like to, yep. And I really like that, removing the garage part, right? We'll have like total lot coverage standards, so somebody building can choose, all right, how much building do I want, how much driveway do I want, where do I, for a lot of ways, where do I want it? So there's
Yes.
a lot of flexibility within those rules,
Yep.
so.
Exactly. That's a good point. You can go ahead. So I'm going to skip this example and go to commercial.
You messed up your math, right?
No, it's perfect. So commercial parking standards, again, trying to simplify, and there's a reduction here. So in general, found the Columbus existing standards to be just a little bit complicated, formulaic, a lot of words. So on the existing standards, it's generally 1 per every 3 seats if you're a restaurant. This is that per seat metric. And then the proposed standard is 1 per 5. So it's going from 1 per 3 to 1 per 5. And then it applies this maximum 1.5 spaces. And then for retail, which is indoor sales and service, instead of 5 per 1,000, it's 1 per 500.
So if you're gonna kind of
Yeah.
compare those similarly, we're currently at 2.5 per 500 and the proposed is 1 per 500 to make the math a little bit easier.
Thank you.
So it's like this draft suggests a 60% reduction and our parking requirements were really high. But it's a significant reduction. And I will tell you kind of as I've, looked around, look at some of the newer retail spaces, you look at the amount of parking the new Dollar Tree has. Maybe 1/3 of the parking that's there gets used. Walgreens, maybe about 1/3. I mean, when you go around and start looking at even busy times, employees and customers, our older developments with our older standards are about 1/3 of which
Yeah.
what's built today.
And when you talk about now, I realize I'm going to talk about trends, and trends can come and go, but when you talk about the trend of mixed use, that's the same thing that we were talking about with the apartment buildings happens, right? One place is busy and another place is not, right? So there's all this sort of shared parking stuff that goes on.
Yeah. And have a couple examples on the next, and of course, Walgreens being one of the most commonly overparked types of commercial establishments. But just to work through this example, 14,000 square feet, if you use your existing standard of 5 per 1,000, so 14,000 divided by 1,000 is 14 times 5 spaces per 1,000, gives you a minimum requirement of 70 spots. And they have provided more than that, so they're at 75. The new parking requirement would be a minimum of 28. That's a very substantial reduction. But again, looking at the aerial and seeing how many cars are parked there during the busiest times, you might find that 28 is quite sufficient. If you applied the maximum, say Walgreens said, no, we still want more, we think our demand is for more than 28, the maximum would allow up to 42, but it wouldn't allow them to go to 70 or 75.
What is the 14,000 square feet? Is that the property
That's the square footage of the building.
of the building?
Yep.
Okay.
The next example is a restaurant, so Culver's. And this one had some assumptions built in. I'm going to try to simplify the cells on the screen. There are 52 stalls counted on that aerial image. So if we assumed that there were 125 seats inside there, based on your existing rules, which is 1 per 3 seats, you'd have 42. And then add 10 employees. That's where that minimum number came from, 59 spots. I'm sorry, and then the next cell is counting the spots on the aerial image. They've provided 59. So the new parking at 1 per 5 seats instead of 1 per 3 would give you a minimum of 25.
I know that picture was not taken during peak time.
Right. Right.
I actually have a question about this. So, okay, so if we're gonna reduce the number of spots that a restaurant like Culver's has, so if and when this ordinance gets done, can Culver's come here and say, you know what, we want to make our drive-through line even bigger because we can remove parking? Is that something that would just have to be approved, or is that something they could just go ahead and do?
That, they'd have to apply for a site plan,
Okay.
revision of their site plan, and then.
Yeah, cause
it
this
would be-
area
it'd be a
is
sta-
super congested.
It'd be it would be a staff review.
Okay.
I would agree. Weekdays, lunch times, I've seen, and in the evening, I've seen this parking lot packed.
Well, and Culver's, to me, Culver's is a good example of why I'm all in favor of reducing the minimums, but I don't think I would want to implement the maximums because they already have a deterrent to overdo it. It costs them land, it costs them pavement, it costs them maintenance. And I feel like if a business owner wants to build that business and put in more than they need to because they know something, or in the example you used, because their lender feels they need it or something, I think, to your goal of avoiding people coming before and asking for permission for variances and so on, I think I would probably not bother with the maximums because they're gonna know their business. They don't wanna spend money if they don't have to.
And I think there are other, I'm actually in favor of some maximums, but it would not be 1.5. I had
Okay.
like 2 to 2.5, I think, than the minimum. But,
Right, make
and
it
I,
excessive.
yep, but I also, that's not a hill I would die on because there are other deterrents. Stormwater management requirements for more impervious area and lot coverage maximums, right? Again, those other rules tend to
Control it.
sort
Work it
of
out.
have the,
They work it out.
yeah, it does. It's a problem that takes care of itself a lot of times.
And some codes will have building coverage requirements and maximum impervious requirements. That's kind of a duplication. So in our code, in our draft, we have maximum impervious because it covers both
Yep.
situations.
And I think we're solving a big problem by reducing you take Walgreens, for example, right? a business like that that's forced to have this much parking, you're also forcing them to have so much more stormwater infrastructure too. So so there's this double whammy thing that goes on. So.
Okay, so it sounds like there's some comfort at 1 per 5 seats and 1 per 500 square feet if you're looking at a retail, not a restaurant, 1 per 500 square feet. But a little bit of a question on the maximum. So I heard, not quite comfortable at the 1.5, and I've kind of leaned in that direction myself as well. If you are going to apply a maximum, some communities will say, well, if the maximum is too flexible, then why even have the maximum? But that depends, I guess, at what threshold that becomes the question. So is that 3, then why even have it? But 2,
I like 2.
2.
Yeah. I think that seems realistic.
I mean, it worked well for the Culvers, it'd be 25 and 50,
Yeah.
and that, is only 9 less than they have now. And they could lose 9 spots and be just fine. But not much more than that.
I'm also willing to practice a little adaptive management here, right? If we roll out 2 and we find people coming in here for variances all the time, that becomes a very narrow problem to solve, and that could get solved without messing around with the whole big,
We have
whole
other
code.
parking stuff go through it, and I just,
Yeah.
in our current code, we have this opportunity for people to ask for a parking reduction. Some communities don't have that, and you have to get a variance through the zoning board of appeals. And I know coming forward, are you anticipating having that option for a parking reduction in the code?
Yes, I was just thinking the same thing. This is a good time to talk about it. So the spreadsheet that was in the packet, it's again one of those situations where there's a lot of cells, but if you're on the proposed standards, so not your existing 2-column, but the proposed standards, at the very bottom of the table, there are 4 footnotes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
was short a copy, and
Oh, he's asking me which one, and I'm like, I only got one.
yeah,
We're good.
I was trying to get some separate copies, and I was short a copy, so I apologize.
I think we're looking at the small. The multi-page small, not the one-page really small.
We can share.
So at the bottom, there are 4 footnotes. Minimum parking requirements may be reduced by the Plan Commission based on a parking study. So the developer comes in and they say, you have a requirement of 2 per unit. This is a senior housing development, and we have data on all of our developments that we only need 1.5 or 1.2 stalls per unit. The Plan Commission can make that decision during site plan review, and you do not have to go through a ZBA variance, and you don't have to do a PUD. Footnote number 2 is the opposite. Maximum parking requirements may be exceeded. So if you had a 1.5 maximum, Culvers can only have 38 spots. In this example, that may be exceeded by the Plan Commission based on a parking study and meeting defined criteria such as the use requires greater parking demand. That might be clarified in the text of the code a little bit, but it provides quite a bit of flexibility. You don't want so much flexibility that there's no guideposts, and we don't want totally subjective, but this asks the developer or the applicant to come forward with a study that justifies the minimum or the maximum. The third one is also relevant, especially in a higher density area, like a downtown or an office park. Joint parking facilities may be approved by the Plan Commission to reduce the minimum required parking on site. So that doesn't typically apply in situations like the Culvers where it's sort of a one-off standalone site, but maybe it's a downtown situation or just adjacent to the downtown or strip mall.
Or Walgreens in the adjacent strip
Yeah.
mall.
Yeah.
That would be a good example to me. So these are all of these would need to be supported by a parking study? Okay. So that's a little bit of a step up. Well, I should say, that's a little bit more of a encumbrance on the applicant compared to what we currently have. Like, what we currently have is, you can come here and we can,
Essentially how it's been in practice is
Yeah.
that an applicant comes to the planning commission and asks for a reduction.
yep, and we say yes, because,
Because it's so obnoxious.
right.
And the study is done by
Okay.
the DOT, correct?
No, that can be done,
This-
by
It
an
can be
engineering
done by
consultant, yeah.
Engineering company or something?
And this is not a TIA, a traffic impact
Yeah.
analysis. It's a parking study. I can check in the text when we get there how much that's defined. But it, like I said, it'd be, I'm a developer, I have 5 senior housing developments in my portfolio. Here's the data, here's the
And this is
pictures.
what I
Yeah.
Yeah.
really need.
It's almost like an assessment where you have comparative values. I have
Yeah.
comparative properties, here's what we found,
Yeah.
that the usage is,
Yeah.
we think we're similar, here you go.
Yeah.
So,
And you still probably don't want to find yourself in that situation more than you have to. So if like the Culver situation, if 1.5 is too tight, you don't want, and not that you're having like a Culver's every other applicant come in or a similar development. But maybe if you want to go to 2, then that reduces the need to go there. So it's a decision.
Well, in the Culver situation, those parking spots, the people use those to drive on them, right? Because people aren't parking there. They're using that to get to the drive-through, those spots, because I see it when I go in there. People are just driving over them to get where they need to go, so.
okay.
There's probably a really easy answer to this. For the downtown businesses where someone might be doing a business in a building, is there some exception for those places that already have no parking that are built but might be changing use? Is there a different district that lets
In
them?
the current code,
Yeah,
current code doesn't require parking for any business in downtown.
okay, good. No, I just wanted to make sure. I was like trying to think, wait a
I
second.
know
what
it's
if-
in there. Don't ask me where it is. I found it one time by accident. Can't find it anymore. I know it's in there.
Yep. I couldn't find it either.
Yeah, it's in there.
Okay, so the next one is industrial parking standards. I don't know if this is a very big reduction. It might be. So again, complicated formula, just a lot of words. The proposed minimum is one space per employee on the largest shift. So let's look at an example, using Enerpac as an example. So 160,000 square foot for the building, divided by 1,000. Little tiny notes on the screen there, so your existing is 1 space per 1,000 for industrial uses over 80,000 square feet in size. So we're at 160, 161. They're actually, per someone who counted this image, 290 spots.
Do we know how many current employees they have there?
Yeah, I think we made an
Do we have
assumption.
someone that
It's
works
like,
there?
is it like 50 or something? Enerpac, do we know how many?
I have no clue. I just see the 1 space for each employee on the largest shift, and I don't know how you would exceed that, right? I mean, unless you grew.
We used an
Well,
estimate.
In a situation like this, too, a company building this type of building may have an idea of what a maximum could be, and they can tell us what they think the maximum might be, because when they first open, it might be one number of employees, when they open, 10 years later, it could be different.
Oh,
and
that's a good
so
point.
Because
you're
they could go
leaving-
from 1 shift to 3 shifts.
Yeah, I
and
think-
that would triple the parking.
Yeah, I think you're leaving some latitude for them to put it where they want it, which is what we want to do.
And it's it's very much in their interest to have enough parking for their employees. I mean, it's in their self-interest, especially in this situation. So for this kind of stuff, it's one of those, in practice, probably whatever your minimum is really gonna be, it's gonna probably work its way out, probably. And maybe with robots,
Right.
we need even, we
Right.
need even less parking.
Right.
Yeah, despite all of my opinions on the residential, this all looks really good.
Yeah, I'd even argue you could probably easily get away with less than one space per employee
Okay, yeah.
per shift.
I mean, I think the employees though in this image really like, especially on that one bottom row, really like going every other.
Why wouldn't you? There's plenty of
Right?
space. Right? So-
Yeah, but if you go on this side of the building, that's like, nobody's there, it's like, well,
Yeah.
I suppose that actually looks like that might be a loading dock.
Yeah,
though.
those look like
That's a
loading
loading
dock.
dock.
But on the other side, there's nobody really.
Yeah.
Right.
So
This-
if a business was to add on, that would trigger, like, they would add more parking, obviously, and they'd have to come up to the standard.
Exactly.
And actually, it would kind of depend. Like if they were adding on an area that was simply machinery and they weren't adding any employees, they could keep the
Right.
same number of parking
Right.
spots.
Okay.
So, but yeah.
But they would have to review it depending on
Yeah.
what.
Right.
It'd be site
Yeah,
plan.
it would definitely trigger a
There'd be
review.
a site plan review.
Okay.
and-
I'm good with that.
Smells right.
Okay. Downtown is next. I suppose this one's relatively simple. Your existing standard, as we just said, no minimum parking. That's very common in peer communities in a downtown zoning district. So the proposed standard is also none, and then the maximum does not apply. And we didn't clarify this on the residential either, but there's no maximum for the residential. So the proposed maximums came in for commercial and industrial. And let me just go back to check. So the industrial was 1.5 as the maximum. So I just, would maybe ask if you want to be consistent, if you were moving towards 2 on the commercial, times 2 as the maximum. Do you want to stay at times 1.5 on industrial, or do you want to match the numbers and be times 2?
Well, I mean, industrial is by how many people is on a shift, so that's a little bit more precise than commercial. So
Right.
I would think just leave it the way it is.
So you're,
Yeah,
yep, that
yeah,
makes
we can
sense.
afford to have a narrower band there.
Yeah.
Great.
And honestly, the employer can fudge the number of employees they say that could be in there too. That's not like square feet where
kind
you
of
can,
fluid.
you have a definite answer.
Yep, and you'll know when people are parking in the shrubbery. So,
And I'm gonna be really impressed if somebody takes more than one vehicle to work.
I know, that's why I said you can actually probably have less than one. So, but.
Okay, I'm comfortable with that. So the downtown then, no minimum existing, no minimum proposed, no maximum. We can get into the why if needed, but downtowns typically function this way. So the next question would be bicycle parking. Your existing code does not have a requirement for bicycle parking. A lot of communities have goals for improving accessibility, not just for encouraging physical activity and promoting public health, but there are people who choose not to own a car, or for different mobility issues or sight issues do not drive a motor vehicle. So do we want to require a minimum bicycle parking amount? A lot of times a developer will come in, they've checked all of their boxes, I meet the setbacks, I provided the parking, now you want to make me add bicycle parking? It might be the last thing on their list that they didn't think of. So this might be a reason where it's maybe not voluntarily being added all of the time, and you might want to require it. So it's just a question, a policy question. The next two divide this out between residential and commercial. So for multifamily, you could say we want one bike parking stall per unit. In Madison, if you've got an underground parking garage, that's often being provided in that garage, or there's a room. Commonly, it's becoming more popular to park bikes, or that can be exterior. If you've got a 12-unit building, you would have 12 bicycle parking stalls, so maybe it's 4 racks on the site. Then you could add to that, you could say, and we want guest bike parking. Some places will do that. Or you could choose not to have a minimum bicycle parking requirement and defer to the market and say, what do you think is the demand here? Where it gets to commercial is maybe a little bit more public facing, where people are moving about the community to a restaurant. and maybe their goals of, the downtown doesn't have parking lots, so maybe we want to allow for bicycle parking or require that. So this would look at maybe you have 4 spaces per commercial use flat. So if it's Culver's, 4 spaces, Walgreens per 4 spaces, Enerpac, 4 spaces. Or you could increase that based on the size if you wanted to be a little bit more precise and proportional.
So personally, I am pro bicycle parking. I think people could ride their bike more. And I do know not having bicycle parking can be a little bit of a pain, right? If I wanted to take my bike over to, I don't know, the Dollar Tree or something like that, I don't think the Dollar Tree has like bicycle parking. I just think if it's available, people might be more apt to use their bike for that kind of thing, personally.
I'm for bike parking too, except 1 per unit, at a multifamily. Because if you have like 40-some units, 40-some parking spots for bikes is a lot.
For me, personally, I would like 5 for like 40 units.
Yeah, I was thinking some fractional amount would be
Yeah.
reasonable. Not everyone, I mean, I'd like to do more than we have, perhaps. I agree, I'd love to make things more bike-friendly, but I don't want to go overboard and require developers to put a whole bunch of empty bike racks out either.
Or maybe 10, because in case there's kids in the apartment buildings or whatever. But, yeah, I would like to see us add it, and I would like to see Columbus be more bike-friendly, personally, because it's good for you. Your health.
So this would be required for downtown too?
There's not a lot of space downtown with the widening of
Right.
the road and everything.
I'd have to check that.
Yeah, I think at one time, the Public Spaces Committee started a conversation about bike racks in the public right-of-way on sidewalks and trying to figure that issue out. I think that is probably more of a city public overall
Yeah.
public parking in downtown issue. I don't know if I would want to see that required in downtown.
I think it's usually city provided.
I agree with that. Like, overall, my tendency is to prefer to have things done by businesses or homeowners. I think with regards to downtown, that's, I guess for lack of a better term, sort of, there's a lot of challenges there that I think are better handled corporately by the city. And I think bicycle parking is one of them.
A lot of things
So-
can become a bike rack if you've got a bike and a lock.
I didn't want to go the whole, when I was a kid, we just, leaned it up against the whatever.
You
but-
wanted to.
Yeah.
So
I just did,
when I
even though said
envisioned
I
that,
wasn't gonna.
I would say the public parking spot where that bar used to be would be a place for bike racks. I wouldn't suggest we put them in front of businesses because then you're having people having to walk
Right.
around them. That's not cool.
I think,
And then a bike rider abruptly stopping in front of you.
Right, so as far as the downtown, I was envisioning it where they're like public parking spaces, like down in that parking lot, down by the bar, or maybe, down here
yeah,
by the senior center, that kind of thing,
Next to the flower shop.
right.
yeah.
So yeah, with
mean,
regards to downtown, that seems like more of a city policy.
I think we have a
Project.
couple in front of the library, right? And
Yeah.
that totally makes sense. I think there's at least 2 or 3 in front of the library.
Can we go back?
But again, this is not something that we're doing to existing businesses or properties.
Right.
So-
But like the downtown thing, like if we put a requirement for downtown, if somebody chose to change the use of an existing downtown property, then it would apply, and I think we'd want to avoid that. 'Cause I think that would become awkward at least, a challenge at worst.
Yeah, so I have
Yeah,
no bicycle parking requirement downtown.
Right.
Yeah, and it might be something like half for every 2 apartments, one spot, so that, when you have something like the new the new one, Lamps Landing, whatever that's going up, they'll put some in, but not a huge requirement.
Okay. I hear consensus there.
Did everybody get what the comments they wanted to make in on multifamily and commercial? So, okay. So just to sum up, I heard for multifamily, I think you said some fractional number. You guys generally
Yeah,
thought
I'm
something
40
similar.
apartments, maybe 5 or 10 tops.
Yeah.
That would be,
So like
you
a
know,
quarter of,
So you're
Yeah.
thinking a quarter?
Yeah, you know, I mean, because that would cover, you know, any kids that may be in the parking
Yeah.
in the apartments and/or any families that, you know, want to do bicycling.
not everyone's gonna use it, but it'd be nice
No.
for there to be some of them.
Yeah. I'd personally even go so far as to make it sort of a nudge item on an application. Do you plan on doing anything for bicycle parking, right? To get people to at least think about it.
Right.
So I'd be willing to go that low, but anyway.
I still got questions on the downtown parking.
Yeah.
So there's no standards at all, and I think I understand why. But we were going through some downtown parking strategy initiative a while back because we have a parking problem downtown. Is this just outside of that to say?
This is outside of that.
Okay, so this is just, as I'm a property owner, I'm not required to do anything? Okay. And the parking strategy is just above and beyond that to say, how do we best support all those businesses downtown?
As like Uriah said, you know, the city working on providing parking for the downtown area, whether it be bicycles or automobiles, and I think one of the issues out there is how do we support parking for apartments above businesses in downtown? And right now, you just park in public lots and there's no predictability for those people, so there can be, some places will have parking permit parking for people in certain areas of their downtown, and some don't, some just keep it like we currently have it.
Okay, but, I mean, is that strategy still underway, or is that kind of fallen?
It's on the back burner.
Back burner, okay.
There's
Sometimes I have to go around the block twice before I can park and pick up my pizza.
Well, I think part of the
It's hard
problem
out
is,
there.
I think we have an ordinance that allocates the maximum of 2 hours, but I think people that live down there or whatever, business owners, whatever, are taking spots and they're parking there all day. And it makes it hard for people to run into Ford Pharmacy or run into the barber shop to get their, you know, their tests taken care of.
Oh, I hear people complaining about all the time that they are monitoring down there, and there's, like, think about going in and let's say you're getting a full head of highlights, haircut, and an eyebrow wax. That's gonna take more than 2 hours. So I hear the opposite. I hear people complaining that, like, they have to, like, go with their head full of foils to go move their car.
Yeah,
That didn't happen to me.
Okay, so, but we're in agreement that individual properties downtown would be too encumbered by some kind of parking requirement for them. Okay, great. So, there we go. We'll end our public comments on our downtown parking situation.
Easy.
You look good in highlights, Mike. Anyway, all right.
I have all my questions answered on parking. Mike, is there anything else?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good discussion.
Good. So more to come. We just started printing really big maps of the city. We're going to start going through parcel by parcel and looking at how the zoning district translates from what you have today to what would be proposed. And that usually comes up with some interesting findings. You know, are these the right districts? Are the sizes correct? Did we account for everything? So we're going to be working on that. You know, if that takes a long time, maybe we'll try to come back with the sign ordinance. But those are some pieces that would be coming in the near future.
Where are you gonna do this the map and stare and compare.
Yeah,
We do
we-
that here?
In our conference room with like 3 people with some Sharpies. And then we give Mike the distilled version so he doesn't have to spend all that time doing it.
I can feel the appreciation. Okay.
I like maps.
So do I, but,
Good planner.
okay.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we've hit the bottom.
Move to adjourn.
Oh, there we go. Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yeah, we're adjourned.